Alright folks, welcome to the Do-It-Yourself-Dad channel. We're out here at Flite Fest West 2017 in Vallejo, California. We've got our pilot's passes here, so we're going to be doing some flying this weekend. We've got RC planes going up in the background here behind us. They've got FPV racing going on, builds going on inside, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So let's go walk the flight line and check out what we've got going on here today. And be sure to stay tuned to the end. If you're thinking of coming out to one of these events, we're going to have some tips to make your event a little bit more successful. For those of you that are just hearing about Flite Fest for the first time, what Flite Fest is a family-friendly RC flying event. This is a 4-day event. They've been holding it in Ohio for several years now. This was their first year holding it in California as Flite Fest West. Flite Fest is put on by a company called Flite Test, and they specialize in making RC affordable and easy for everybody and getting families into flying together. A lot of their projects are made out of foam board. You can either use Dollar Tree foam board for $1 or $2 and make an airplane, or order kits from them for a really reasonable price. They also have a YouTube channel, which is really entertaining. I have a link to their YouTube channel in the show notes below. I'd really suggest, if you're looking at getting into the RC hobby or already in the RC hobby, to subscribe to them. They put out content weekly, really fun, entertaining stuff. The way this event is laid out, they've got several areas. They've got a beginner area, which is where we set up because I was out with my daughter flying. They have an advanced area, an FPV area for drone racing and things along those lines, and then they also have a separate area for helicopters and 3D stuff. So we're going to kind of show you around the event, show you what they had. We got a lot of footage of a lot of stuff, but there was a lot of stuff we missed because there was just so much stuff going on. So here, let's check everything out. We're starting here in the FPV area. I'm by no means a good pilot by FPV, but I have a lot of fun doing it, so I just kind of cruised around and had some fun. These guys had it really well organized with all the video channels being sorted out correctly so people weren't crossing over each other's channels and whatnot. Had a lot of fun. Met a lot of the big players in the FPV game. Everybody was super friendly, helping out beginners. Had a lot of fun flying with these guys over in the FPV area. Here we are flying down at the beginner area. I got to maiden my arrow, which I was really happy. It flew amazing. This was actually my very first flight with it. It was dialed in from the start. Had a lot of fun flying that. But what I really enjoyed was getting to get out and fly with my daughter. And here's some footage of me taking the plane off and then handing the controller over to my daughter and letting her fly for a bit. She flew more packs than I could count. Had an amazing time. She met some amazing people, really supportive people. It was great to see people really embracing youth, getting into the hobby. So she felt like she was a little celebrity there and had a lot of fun going out and flying her little trainer with all the big guys and the big girls out there. She also talked me into doing the night fly, and I wasn't originally intending on doing the night fly. We went out to watch it. I happened to have my Aurora in the car, and I threw the thing up. It was probably the smallest thing in the air, but it was quick and fun. We got to get some FPV footage in that thing. My daughter did a ride along in the goggles, and we just had a blast doing the night fly. There's so many things happening in Flite Test. It's hard to take them all in, but if you can make a full day out of it and really get out and check everything out, even into the night flies. Unfortunately, we were too tired to stay, but they even had a bonfire program that was going on after this. So lots and lots of fun up and down the flight line. Here's the Aurora taking off here, buzzing down the line, and then we've got some in-camera, some FPV footage of the thing as well. So great time with the night fly. There were guys with LEDs strapped to their planes. We even saw an octocopter with a disco ball strapped to the bottom of it. So really a lot of kind of neat, fun stuff. Nobody taking things really too seriously. Moving inside to the build area, they had builds going on everywhere, and there was everything from kids grabbing, trainer kits and building trainer kits like my daughter and her friend here, all the way up to humongous builds where there were multiple people working on the same airplane. There were dads, here's me helping my kid and her friend, but there were dads helping their kids, there were kids helping each other. It was a great environment inside. I realized when I got there I'd forgotten a couple tools, and you didn't even think twice about looking at the person next to you and asking for tools. We were lending tools back and forth. We were helping each other out. So it was a great kind of family bonding experience for everybody. The kits here, you can see they're real easy, and they do sell the kits at Flite Fest. So you can literally show up with nothing, buy everything, and fly a plane at Flite Fest, coming completely unprepared. They even had group builds. Here's one of the big group builds going on. You can see just a mess of foam and whatnot. Everybody kind of building the same plane with instruction from the guys from Flite Test. What video would be complete here without some tiny whoop footage? So here's the tiny whoop in the build area itself, kind of just slowly cruising back and forth a little bit, getting you a view from above and all the tables they had set up and all the fun we were having. There were guys on day 2 flying tiny whoops and little brushless quads all over the inside area here, having lots of fun. This is one of the big fuselages, one of the large builds that you guys were doing. Tried to fly in it, got kind of sucked up in the turbulence inside and couldn't make it out, but still had a lot of fun out there in the build area. And here's my daughter catching my tiny whoop at the end of my flight. So I had a good time inside in the build area. They also had FT STEM. So if you don't know what STEM is Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math, and it's a school program. Flite Test has put together a school program, and here they are doing their school program at Flite Test. So if you bring your kids, you can sign them up for one of these. This was learning about control surfaces, and they got to make these little gliders, chuck gliders, and then they got to play with the control surfaces and show how the control surfaces change the angle of the plane and how it all works. They talked about center of gravity, and look here, the kids even got a chance to really do some building on kits themselves. And at the end, they got to demo them. They flew them across the hall, had a lot of fun, chucking them back and forth. And we even got a big group shot of all the kids together here, throwing them and then catch them and throwing them back and forth. And I noticed after this, these things were getting thrown all over Flite Fest. So they were having a lot of fun with it. And of course, it wouldn't be the Do-It-Yourself-Dad channel without throwing a camera on everything. So here we threw a camera on her little chuck glider so she could watch it through the goggles. And we noticed once we brought the thing inside and started chucking it around, we wound up passing the goggles around. A lot of people got to go on little rides on her chuck glider here. So had a lot of fun with FT STEM. Another component of FT STEM was the flight tank, and this is my daughter actually pitching a design that she came up with, and we're going to fine-tune that design and hopefully come back with an even better one next year. But it was her pitch to kind of encourage women in flight and women in the hobby of RC. So I was super proud of her. She did it all and put it all together. And then for the kids here, we go outside. They even had a children's tent or a family tent, and they had all sorts of games and activities going on. I got footage of a little bit, but there was a lot more in there. They had coloring stations and craft stations and all sorts of outside games and whatnot like this. So if you're kind of burned out of flying, or your kids are burned out of flying, there's that. And no Flite Fest would be complete without something big and ridiculous getting into the air. So this was a build with Emacs, where they took one of their projects and made it, I think it was 400%, put a bunch of tiny motors on it. Took them 3 attempts to get this thing in the air. They kept having electrical issues, but here's attempt number 3. They put it on top of a golf cart to get some airspeed and cranked it down the runway, and you can see here at the very end, they gave it a good hard chuck, and it actually did make it up in the air and climb out just barely clearing the trees. And we can see that happen right there, where it just barely cleared those trees coming around. This thing was awesome to see fly. It was an ongoing project where they kept bringing the thing down, doing some repairs, and then getting it back up in the air. But it was a lot of fun to see this thing take off and hear all the cheers of the crowd when it went airborne. Throughout the event, there were several rounds of RC combat. Old school RC combat was you put streamers on the back and try to chop them with your props. Now you just put your old planes in the air and try to knock each other out of the sky. So this was a lot of fun to watch. I couldn't even tell you how many planes are in the air during this round of combat, but there weren't a lot in the end. We also got to see a lot of just large-scale kind of fun custom builds, and here's a big one getting chased by some camera drones here. And if you've ever wondered what it would be like to strap a boombox to an RC airplane and rickroll the flight line, this is exactly what it would sound like. Even though this was a electric event, there were several demos of the big gassers going up and doing some stunt flying. So here's one of the gassers going up, leaving a big smoky trail behind it, doing some awesome stunt flying. This was definitely a crowd stopper and a crowd pleaser for sure. And we also got to watch some 3D helicopters. So while we're watching that, let's talk about some of those tips for making your trip to Flite Fest a little bit more enjoyable. Tip number 1, if you're coming from a distance away and you have to fly in, don't worry. I chose to drive the 6 hours up because I wanted to bring all my stuff with me. But you can really make an event out of this without bringing anything and just watching the flight take place. Or if you want to just bring the basics and build a plane while you're there, you can pick up kits from anywhere between 10 and 20 bucks, build it in the afternoon and fly it. And if you crash it, just rip your electronics out of it and bring it all home. Tip number 2, if you forget stuff, be sure to ask somebody else. These were some of the friendliest people I've ever had a chance to hang out with. And anything I needed, I'd ask the person next to me. I had people asking me for stuff. So come, be prepared to answer questions if you're experienced. If you're inexperienced and brand new, be totally comfortable with asking people for help. This was a great family-friendly event. Tip number 3, bring a wagon. If you are planning on setting up on the Flightline, bring a wagon so you can haul all your stuff. This was a lifesaver for me, and I'm super glad that I brought this because I want to haul in toolboxes and planes and chargers and all sorts of stuff. And it was a good distance between my car and the Flightline, so that was a huge, huge help. Next tip, bring a canopy. They let us set up canopies along the Flightline, and we staked them in and just left it there for the whole weekend, so we had a place to hang out and hear the kids coloring. And of course, come to have fun. Don't worry about the big stuff, just come and fly. If you crash, build another one. That's kind of what this event's all about. So like I mentioned before, we got a lot of footage of some awesome stuff, but there's a lot of stuff we missed just because there's so much stuff going on at Flite Test. But we hope you enjoyed this video and got something out of it. We hope you got something out of those pointers. If you did, please give me a great big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. And don't forget, down in the notes below, there's links to Flite Test and their YouTube page, so be sure to check them out. And there's also some links to some of the products, including the drone that I used to shoot some footage at the beginning of the video. So with that, happy flying.